Hello everyone and welcome to the Esri Petroleum webinar series. Today we will present ArcGIS Pro, Esri's professional desktop GIS application. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the next few days. All registrants will receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording. And before we get started, I would like to encourage you to post your questions in the GoToWebinar questions dialog box during the presentation. We'll answer as many questions as time permits after the webinar. My name is Adam Pittman and I manage petroleum accounts on the natural resources team. I'm joined by Scott Noulis of Esri, Chris Jepps of Exprodat, and Ryan Lupo of Howard Energy. Our presenters today will cover an ArcGIS Pro demonstration, migrating your business from ArcGIS Desktop to ArcGIS Pro, and a look at a popular business partner extension to ArcGIS Pro, as well as an explanation of migrating that extension from ArcGIS Desktop to ArcGIS Pro. A little bit about ArcGIS Pro. We're in the 2.1 release cycle, and it's been commercially available for more than 2 years. ArcGIS Pro is a native 64-bit application that allows GIS professionals to work in a 2D and 3D environment with an intuitive ribbon interface design similar to what many of you might be familiar with in Microsoft Office products. ArcGIS Pro is a big step forward in advancing visualization, analytics, image processing, data management, and integration within your enterprise. Our first presenter today is going to cover 5 topics. There are many things that we could cover within ArcGIS Pro, so we're just picking a few, but we're going to talk about mapping and visualization, communicating more effectively across your organization with ArcGIS Pro. We're going to see some applications and new tools and features for 3D, as well as logistics and analytics and charting. I'd like to introduce my colleague, Scott Noulis. He selected these features out and he is going to give us a quick demonstration of these items in ArcGIS Pro. Scott, are you ready to take over?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Adam. ArcGIS Pro, like Adam said, brings many new features, enhancements, and functionality to the world of desktop GIS. You can now take advantage of Pro's 64-bit environment to improve your workflows and expand the power of your GIS. ArcGIS Pro features a new user interface that will enable you to work more efficiently with contextual tabs, panes, and views that change depending on what you're trying to do. You can spend less time searching for the right tools and more time being productive. ArcGIS Pro seamlessly connects to the rest of the ArcGIS platform and offers better support for your workflows. You can now create tasks, which are a series of pre-configured steps that can be used to guide you through a repeatable workflow or business process. If you have a series of operations that you perform, a task can be a great way to sequentially organize those operations as steps and share them with others. I've built a series of tasks that I will use to walk through this demo. As you will see, you can configure commands, tools, and views to launch with each step. Pro integrates directly with your ArcGIS Online or Enterprise portal. You can easily see the named user account you're logged in with and the portal you're connected to. Manage multiple portals directly in ArcGIS Pro. As you can see here, ArcGIS Online organizations are highlighted with the blue icon, and enterprise portals are highlighted with the purple icons. You can optionally switch your active portal to publish to any combination of portals or ArcGIS Online organizations. This can enable you to be flexible if your workflows require you to publish to either ArcGIS Online or Enterprise. You can search and discover content in your portal directly in Pro using the Portal tab in the Catalog pane. Browse through personal, group, organizational, and Living Atlas content, and optionally search for items using keywords. You can also search all of ArcGIS Online or only those items within your organization. To add content from your portal, simply drag and drop the item onto the map view. You can quickly publish a variety of content to your portal using the integrated sharing tools in the Share tab, or by right-clicking the desired layer. When you do that, a new pane to share your layer will pop up on the right-hand side, where you specify the layer name and some item description information. Many new mapping and visualization capabilities have been introduced with the 2.1 release. You can now drag and drop content, including map documents, from File Explorer and between open instances of Pro. When you add an MXD to Pro, all of the data, layers, and symbology will be preserved. This will allow you to migrate from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro without having to recreate your maps and data every time. You can now also drag content from between open instances of ArcGIS Pro. If you are working with a map in one instance, and you want to view that map in another, simply drag and drop the map. Finding the coordinates of a particular point on the map hasn't always been the easiest thing to do. However, you can now right-click a point on the map and copy the coordinates of that point. Paste the coordinates in another document or share them through email. If you're interested in a subset of features in a layer, you can now make a layer from selected features. Interactively select features on the map, or use a selection tool to select features. Here, we're going to select all the permits that are within 1 mile of our leases. As we run this tool, a selection will be made. And to make a selection, or a new selection layer, all we need to do is right-click the layer that our selected features are in, and click Make Layer from the selected features. There have been many improvements to labeling in ArcGIS Pro. You now have the ability to copy and paste label properties from one layer to another. To do this, open up the Labeling tab, select the label class you wish to copy, and simply paste it into the target label class. Paste all of the properties or a subset of the properties. Toggle the label on to see the copied properties. Another improvement in labeling is the ability to set scale ranges for label classes. You can configure labels to display differently according to the scale of the map. This is a great way to improve readability and performance, as labels are only drawn within the scale range at which they are useful. At the smaller scale, I've got the last 5 digits of the API number in my label. However, as I zoom in, you'll see the entire API number as well as the permit approved date. You can now configure scale-based rendering for each layer. You can set the symbology properties so that the symbol of each feature dynamically adjusts across the visible scale range of the layer. As you can see, as I'm zoomed out at a smaller scale, all of my wells appear as a black dot. However, as I zoom in, the symbology for each well draws according to the well type. This can be a great way to show uniformity of similar features at smaller scales and differentiate unique symbols at larger scales. Finally, you can leverage the use of vector-based maps in Pro. These base maps appear sharper and offer enhanced drawing performance. Additionally, they will maintain a consistent appearance when the map is rotated. As you can see, my road labels and my town names remain consistent. Several new geoprocessing tools have been added to help streamline your workflows. With the XY table to point tool, you can now create a point feature class directly from a tabular dataset without having to first create an event layer. The Calculate Fields tool allows you to calculate values for multiple fields in a single layer, all within one operation. Select your expression type and the fields you wish to calculate. Enter the expression and optionally check the Start Editing box to enable a mini edit session. This will allow you to undo any changes you make. If you wish to commit your changes, go to the Edit tab and save your edits. With ArcGIS Pro, you can run several geoprocessing tools simultaneously. Manage all of your open tools and toggle between your open tools with the click of a button. New visual analytics and charting capabilities help you gain valuable insight on your data. You can now run statistics on a field and generate a chart to visualize important statistical information like averages, standard deviation, and more. To do this, right-click and open the attribute table for your desired layer. Browse to a field you wish to view, and right-click Statistics. This will open a chart view in the Chart Properties pane. You can optionally toggle on different things like standard deviation and show normal distribution within the Chart Properties pane. You can also create charts directly from any layer to visualize the data in a number of different ways. Choose from a list of chart types to compare variables, data distributions, and plot counts and amounts. Again, configure the elements of your chart in the Chart Properties pane. Select the variables you wish to compare, and watch them load in the chart view. In Pro, the chart and map are interactive. You can make a selection in one window and view the results in the other. If you make a selection on the map, the selected features will highlight in the chart. If you make a selection on the chart, the selected features will highlight in the map. You can also filter the chart to show only the selected features or only the features within the current map extent. ArcGIS Pro 2.1 includes many enhancements and new functionality in 3D visualization and editing. There's a new set of tools that allow you to perform interactive analysis when exploring your data. Choose a tool and interactively create graphics and manipulate analysis parameters on the fly. In the exploratory analysis pane, you can change the input parameters and the creation method. Using the viewshed tool, I can click an observer point on the map and interactively move my viewshed around to see which features are visible. The red and green shading show the visibility of the area within the viewshed. You can optionally view line of sight and view dome as well as viewshed. You can now visualize 3D scenes in isometric mode. This viewing mode renders the 3D view using a parallel projection so features of the same physical size appear identical no matter their distance from the viewing camera. To do this, go to drawing mode and select isometric and pan around the map to explore the differences. You can now use the editing grid in 3D as a reference when creating and modifying features. Toggle on the editing grid at the bottom of the map view and open the settings to change things like spacing and your snapping and display preferences. Set the desired spacing of the grid cells and enable snapping for consistency during editing. Optionally, you can set the grid elevation for Z-enabled features. ArcGIS Pro 2.1 gives you all the tools you need to effectively plan and share your logistical workflows. The same extensions you've always used are available in Pro and even improved upon to give you a better user experience. With the Network Analyst extension, for example, you can quickly generate drive times, find the best routes, and more. I've got a subset of wells here on my map that need to be inspected by field personnel, as shown by the red circles. With Network Analyst, I can determine the best order to visit the wells and generate the best route to take. With the Network Analyst contextual tab, I can import stops, set my driving mode and stop sequence, and generate a route to visit those stops. Once you create a route layer, you can share it with others using the integrated sharing tools. Field personnel can then view the route on their mobile device in the field using turn-by-turn directions to navigate to each stop. With ArcGIS Pro 2.1, you can take advantage of highly requested workflows, unique innovations, and a tighter integration with the ArcGIS platform. Go to My Esri to download the application and get started today. That concludes this portion of the webinar. If you have any questions, please hold them for the Q&A session at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. So as far as questions, I want to remind you that we have the question dialog box there in the webinar. And if you have any questions about what Scott just showed, you're welcome to enter those questions into that box, and we'll curate those and answer them towards the very end of the presentation. Our next presenter is Ryan Lupo. Ryan is a senior GIS analyst with Howard Energy in San Antonio, Texas. Ryan is a past presenter at the Petroleum GIS conference, where he shared his story of implementing the ArcGIS platform from scratch across his organization. Today, Ryan will be sharing his story of how the rollout of ArcGIS Pro has gone at Howard Energy. So at this time, I'm going to hand it over to Ryan Lupo.
Thank you, Adam. Anyone who has used Esri desktop software over the years knows they're always looking for ways to enhance the user's capabilities. If we look back 5, even 3 years ago, it's easy to see a surge of advancement from their products. I like to think of this as a wave of GIS technology. And when it comes to GIS desktop applications, Pro is at the crest of this wave. I wanted my team at Howard Energy Partners to be part of the next generation of Esri's desktop platform and embrace new technology. My company has seen fantastic growth over the years, and my group needs to be prepared for the future to continue that success for the company. To me, that means we need to be effective and efficient as possible. ArcPro not only gives my team that advantage, it makes us more adaptable for the future. The evolution of Esri desktop software has come a long way since ArcInfo. Each new software package increased our analytical powers users, broadening our area of opportunity to provide innovative solutions for the companies we work for. I needed my team to make that jump to ArcGIS Pro. It started with education and research. I did my homework. I started with a few of Esri's online recordings to understand the key concepts of ArcGIS Pro. From there, my curiosity only grew. Naturally, the next step for me in that process was hands-on training. I purchased an Esri book called Getting to Know ArcGIS Pro. Working my way through the chapters, I began to grasp Esri's improved methods to all the familiar workflows we were accustomed to in ArcGIS Desktop. I then passed the book to each member of my team until each person had the core foundation of how to get around ArcPro and how to use its new interface. The idea of change can stir varying reactions from everybody, from each person. So it's very important that we leaned on each other to bridge the learning gap. We effectively shared each other's tips and tricks to push our own adoption of ArcGIS Pro. It was a true collaborative effort for the whole team. We kept an open mind and committed to use ArcGIS Pro for our next information product. This would officially become a new workflow. We started small with simple map requests, and that helped us focus on the end game, giving us the foundation of what the next generation of ArcGIS desktop software could do for Howard Energy. So what are some of the benefits? For us, organization. The project file structure lends itself to our workflows. The file geodatabase created with every new ArcGIS Pro project is a tremendous help. We are constantly getting little bits of information from our business development team, a shapefile here, a KMZ here, there, PDF files, just a vast variety of information. And not everything needs to be put into our enterprise geodatabase. So that file geodatabase with the Arc Pro project makes a great storage place for those items. The result from many of these information products from our business development team typically include a PDF or JPEG. The ArcGIS Pro project folder gives us the perfect place to store these items. The ability to have multiple maps and layouts within an ArcGIS Pro project is a big help as well. This gives us flexibility to have several variations of information products depending on the situation, while keeping them all in one nice, neat place. Almost every map request we get is for multiple representations of the same data. Being able to have multiple maps and layouts, we can easily create and share layout templates to ensure style consistency across all the maps. This also helps us have faster turnaround. Editing workflows are faster. A majority of the time, we do not receive nice, neat shape files for potential projects or acquisitions. We typically sift through pipeline right-of-way legal descriptions and other documents to understand what's going on. In ArcGIS Pro, we can quickly map these legal descriptions to get a better feel of the project. This might seem small, but it greatly improves our response time. This gives us a better finished product. It's a combination of many improvements that Esri has designed into ArcGIS Pro that enable us to make it a better information, allow us to make better information products. Last on this very short list of benefits, I want to mention the ribbon. Esri has adopted a modern desktop application look and feel. It's quite dynamic, highlighting functionality and tools based on what you're specifically working on at the time in your ArcGIS Pro project. I can quickly find interfaces that I need for the task at hand. Again, improving turnaround time. Since we're discussing the ribbon, the best piece I've ever heard from Esri in trying to get around ArcGIS Pro for new users is simply to look up and then look right. Try this next time you're in Pro. If by looking up you understand what you can do with your with whatever you're working on, and then when you look right, it gives you the options of what you can do and analysis that you can do functionality-wise with that layer. Another small but certainly helpful feature my team finds is the ability to add fields when you want them. Instead of just at the end of tacking them on to the end of a table, an attribute table, you can do this during an edit session. You can drag and drop exactly where you want them to show up within the attribute table. In the top right, I have an example of the project folder. Again, it's able to keep everything nice and neat in a tidy location. You can see that we have some PDF documents, some that we've exported out for our business development team. You can see the file geodatabase there. It's all kind of nice, neat, and organized. In the bottom left, here's an example of multiple map and layout tabs, giving us the flexibility and organization. We tend to keep new business development projects all in a pro project. They will have multiple views of the same data, multiple layouts depending on the audience that they're trying to present to. So this, again, it just keeps it all in one place. It's fantastic. And last but not certainly least is it's very simple to input line direction and distance. This might not seem like much, but for my group, based off the legal descriptions that we're using for right-of-way and trying to plot out a pipeline and where it's going and see if this is a good fit for our company, this saves a lot of time with our meets and bounds description. So what are our plans at Howard Energy for ArcGIS Pro for the rest of this year and beyond? We have a few good plans involving Pro, and I would like to implement ArcGIS pipeline referencing tools. We definitely need ArcGIS Pro to make that happen, improving asset organization and efficiency, keeping my team riding on that GIS tech wave. Once again, we're a small group in a fast-growing company. I want my team to be prepared for the future. At a high level, I look at our adoption of ArcGIS Pro in two ways. It keeps the team more agile for possibilities, what Esri's R&D team is developing in the future down the road, and two, the benefits it can do for Howard Energy right now. ArcGIS Pro complements our need to be leaner, faster, and smarter. ArcGIS Pro allows us to grow and develop new capabilities at Howard Energy, and we are going to continue to do that. We are always learning something new in ArcGIS Pro. Above everything I've mentioned, the key reason for my team welcoming ArcGIS Pro is its ability to set us up for success now and the future. I highly recommend, if you haven't had the chance to start tinkering with ArcGIS Pro, I was quickly surprised on how it could impact Howard Energy.
All right, thank you so much, Ryan. Our next presenter is Chris Jepps of Exprodat. Chris has been in the petroleum industry since 1992 and has his roots in petroleum exploration process and data management. Today, Chris will provide an overview of the ArcGIS Pro extension, Exploration Analyst. This extension has been around and has been migrated from an ArcGIS desktop extension to an ArcGIS Pro extension. Any customers or partners that have ArcGIS desktop extensions will be particularly interested in hearing about the Exprodat experience in migrating to ArcGIS Pro. So Chris, at this time, I'll switch the presentation over to you.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Am I going to be presenter here? There we go. Gotcha. So thanks, Adam. I'm Chris Jepps. I'm the products director at Exprodat, and I'll be talking about how we've moved our Exploration Analyst extension from ArcMap over to ArcGIS Pro. A little about Exprodat. We are an Esri Gold partner, and we're experts in the application of GIS within the petroleum industry. Our skills are essentially a combination of geoscience knowledge, geospatial, and information management, and we're part of the GTech group. We have a number of commercial extensions which we develop and market within the petroleum industry, and these have been available on ArcMap for some years. The three main extensions are called Data Assistant, which is a tool for moving data from seismic interpretation and other integrated interpretation packages. Unconventionals Analyst, which is a tool for common shale oil, shale gas, coal bed methane workflows, for example, around well sticks and well pattern planning and reserves management. And Exploration Analyst, which we'll be looking at today in more detail. Right now, we're moving two of these extensions over to ArcGIS Pro, with the third to come soon after. Exploration Analyst is essentially an exploration tool for new ventures and exploration departments. allowing customers to use play-based exploration workflows in order to high-grade areas of exploration and assess basin and play activity and reserves and results. Exploration Analyst is designed for geoscientists to read. It's data agnostic and it's very easy to use. The tool allows you to guide your exploration teams through some industry best practice and standardize your processes across your company to help with your portfolio investment decisions. So I'm just going to jump out to a quick demo of Exploration Analyst so you can have a quick look and a quick see at how it looks within ArcGIS Pro. So first of all, I have a map here in Pro, and I've hidden the ribbon. One of the nice things about the ribbon is the tools are always there available for you, but you can shrink it down in order to maximize the size of your map on the screen, which is often one of the most important things. But if I just click on the Exploration Analyst link in the ribbon there, we can pull up a tool from the Exploration Analyst extension and start processing our data. So the first thing I'm going to do is just create a common risk segment map using a very simple workflow. So I have a couple of geology layers representing the reservoir distribution across the North Sea here. And I'm going to take a very simple example and use a tool to convert those into a risk map for my reservoir. So firing up my tool, this should look very similar to some of the existing Exploration Analyst customers who I can see are on the line today. So we've tried to write the extension in Pro so that existing users with ArcMap will find it very easy to migrate over to Pro. I'm actually going to dock this into my window here to maximize the space for my map. And I'm just going to convert my two reservoir layers here from geology into risk. And this is a very kind of common workflow within the industry. So having selected my two layers and the attributes I wish to convert into risk, I'm going to specify some risk values, giving high values for where my sands are present and low values for where they're absent or onshore. I'm going to take the maximum value as my output. Where I have no data, I'm going to give that a 0, and I'm going to limit my analysis to the edge of my play, and then just specify an output feature class. And now I'm going to run my analysis. So I'm converting these two layers into a risk map for my reservoir. So this will complete in just a moment, and then the map will appear. The layer will appear in the map. So we have tools within Exploration Analyst for very rapidly creating these type of risk layers, and we can create those layers from any kind of data that you can get into your table of contents. So we can convert raster-based layers into risk, and I'm not going to run that process live, but I have one that I created earlier. And similarly, numeric polygon style layers like this Kimmeridge clay layer also into risks. So I have 3 layers now, one of which I created live for you, showing the distribution of our, showing the risk of having our source, our seal, and our reservoir across the area. And then the last step in this very common workflow is to simply stack these together to create a common risk segment map. So again, I'm just going to select those 3 layers, clip my output to the edge of the play, and select some other attribution here, and give it an output feature class, and click run. So now I'm combining those 3 risk layers into what's called a common risk segment map. And this shows us ultimately where potential prospective areas across the basin for this play will be located. And it guides our exploration teams into areas where they should be focusing on with future work projects. So switching gears slightly, Exploration Analyst in ArcMap also has a lot of graphing capability, and I'm just going to do a quick demo and showing how we've migrated some of that stuff over to the ArcGIS Pro environment. One of the things we've done in our ArcGIS Pro extension is really embrace the WebGIS pattern, which ArcGIS Pro supports. So I have my catalog pane open here on the right-hand side, and if I just highlight the layer that I have already navigated to, you can see that this is hosted on ArcGIS Online. So this is actually a feature service within ArcGIS Online. I'm going to drag this layer into my table of contents, and we have a number of fields and prospects across the North Sea have now appeared in the map. Now these fields and prospects all have attribution for when the field was discovered and also how much hydrocarbon was discovered in each field. And we can use Exploration Analyst to run some basin and play statistics on these fields, which will tell us something about the history of the play. So I'm going to close my catalog window down, and going into Exploration Analyst, bring up my Analyze Pool Sizes tool, which again I've docked into the display here. So I'm going to specify my field prospects layer, which, as I say, is out there on the cloud, is on the Esri cloud on ArcGIS Online. Specify my pool size attribute and my discovery date field, and I'm going to limit this again to my basin outline. And now I can start switching on some of the graphs inside this view. So I've brought up now a creaming curve and a pool size distribution, which are two very common tools, and also the statistics for the pool size distribution, which appear down the bottom. Now, as Scott showed in his demo, the rich interactivity between the graphing environment and the map is very powerful. So, for example, on my pool size distribution here, I can mouse over certain fields. So, for example, this Britannia field, and it tells me what the volume is and also the name on the graph, but also it highlights on the map on the left-hand side. We can also run selection queries on the map and see where those items are selected within the graph. So if I run a select by attributes, and I'm just going to add a clause and select where my subplay equals Paleocene, and run this. So I'm now selecting all the Paleocene fields, which was related to the risk map that we created earlier, and I can immediately see where those are selected on the graph. Deselecting or clearing that selection, just wait for the graph to refresh there. I can also select from the graph and see where those items are highlighted on the map. So here I've selected the largest graphs from the pool size distribution. So the modern architecture of ArcGIS Pro has allowed us to really create a very modern look and feel around our basin and play reserves within ArcGIS Pro. And finally, I'm just going to group my analysis here by my subplay. And you can see that with Exploration Analyst within ArcGIS Pro, we can really start to slice and dice our data and really get a good feel for the prospectivity of any area that we're looking at. Okay, so we found that moving our extension over to ArcGIS Pro has provided our users with a very high quality user experience. It's very easy to use, and of course it integrates seamlessly with the rest of the ArcGIS platform. As I say, this whole analysis in the second part of the demo was run on a layer that was sourced from ArcGIS Online. So I'm just going to jump back to my PowerPoint. So when we migrated our extension from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro, how did it go? What were the challenges, and what did we think worked well? Well, in summary, if you've got a lot of ArcObjects code in your in-house solution, or you're a partner and you've got a commercial solution, the ArcObjects code is a substantial rewrite over to the new ArcGIS Pro API. However, some parts of the code were very easy to migrate, anything involving Python, for example. So I would say if you're thinking of doing some development and you have ArcGIS Pro on your roadmap, but you still need to develop in ArcMap for a little while or concurrently with ArcGIS Pro, then maybe focus on ArcMap within the Pro environment. And this will be much easier to migrate over to Pro when the time comes. I'd also say that once we got up and running with the Pro development, it took much less time than we anticipated. And as I previously mentioned, we think it looks great. Our extension in Pro, it's a great user experience, and we're really finding the quality and performance of ArcGIS Pro and our own code within Pro is really improving with every release. And we specifically targeted ArcGIS Pro at 2.1 because we felt there was going to be enough feature parity there with what our customers are expecting from ArcMap. So really ArcGIS Pro 2.1 we feel is really ready to go. Some of the challenges with moving our extension over, there are some new coding patterns like MVVM and WPF. So if you don't know those particular patterns or frameworks, that's something you have to learn. And of course, there is a new ArcGIS Pro API. But you can get over those challenges. There are now training courses available for the API. We leverage some Dev Summit workshops as well, which were very helpful. So what worked well when we migrated our code base over? We found the Pro SDK to be very reliable, very well documented. And there's a lot of increasing community help out there around the SDK as more and more people start using it, for example, on GNet. You can always rely on the Esri development team to monitor the GNet channels, and you can find them very responsive if you get to the occasional stumbling block, which you might do if you're doing something new. The team are always there to help, and I'd really encourage you to give the team feedback for things that you find aren't working. If they don't know they're not working, they're not going to fix them, and if they do know they're not working for you, then you may find them getting fixed much sooner than maybe you were previously used to with the more mature ArcMap product. We find the API was very intuitive and actually needs very many fewer lines of code to achieve the same thing as in ArcObjects. And as I mentioned before, the Python code elements of our tools we found very easy to migrate. And of course, it's not just about creating the same thing in Pro that you had in ArcMap. There are new opportunities that you can leverage in Pro due to the modern architecture. So we found, in particular, the 64-bit architecture has allowed us to really deliver an improved graphing experience for the users of our extension. And we've also enabled our tools within the geoprocessing environment. And as I mentioned before, we've been able to leverage the WebGIS pattern, making sure that all of our processing tools can handle data stored on ArcGIS Online or on Portal. So if you'd like to find out more about the Exprodat extension that I've shown you today, the URL's up there on the screen. We've actually been working with Pro since the beta of version 1.0. So we have a number of services designed to help our customers migrate from ArcMap over to ArcGIS Pro. And we also have a training course specifically focused at how to use ArcGIS Pro within the petroleum industry. And if you'd like to just contact Exprodat to find out more, please use the email below, or rather at the foot of the slide here, arcgispro@exprodat.com. And with that, I'll hand back to Adam.
Thank you, Chris. Well, this is the end of the presentations for this webinar. We could only scratch the surface on ArcGIS Pro during our time today, but there are many great resources that we want to share with you where you can learn more about ArcGIS Pro on the Esri website. These include how-to videos, very good blog articles, and a number of getting started documents. But at this time, we're going to answer a few questions. So we've had quite a few questions come in, more than we can answer in the time remaining. So what we're going to do is we're going to answer as many questions as we can, and we are going to put those in the email out when we send those out. Let me get through my slides here. So some of the questions, let's get started. This first question comes in for Scott, and the question is, can you tell me more about scale-based symbols? Does that mean I can publish a single service and don't need to publish 3 or 4 to accomplish the same thing? And does it really work? Scott, I'll let you answer if it really works or not. You ready to take that one?
Sure. So when a layer is symbolized with either unique values or graduated colors, you can specify the visible scale range for each symbol class. This is an effective strategy to limit the amount of detailed data at smaller scales without having to make multiple versions of the layer, each with a different definition query. And so once scale ranges are applied to symbol classes, you can further refine the appearance of features within those scale ranges by establishing different symbols to different parts of the symbol class scale range. And yes, if the scale-based symbol classes are applied to the layer, it's carried through to ArcGIS Online or Portal, which is obviously great because that prevents you from having to create 3 or 4 different layers just to show symbology for the same data set.
All right. Scott, while we're on you, there's a couple other questions here. How does ArcGIS Pro do in a virtualized environment? You got that one?
Yes, that is a great question. We know a lot of people are working in virtualized environments these days, and really Pro can perform just as well in a properly configured cloud or on-premise virtualized environment as it does on a desktop machine. And the primary resources that Pro requires based on its architecture are things like CPU, RAM, and GPU. And so there's a lot of good documentation online that kind of outlines the minimum recommended requirements and guides on running Pro in a virtualized environment. So if that's something you're interested in, just hop on the documentation online and there'll be plenty of detailed information for you to sift through.
All right, I'll queue up a couple more, one more for you, and then we've got some for Chris as well coming in. Let's go through the list here. This one, I'll put you on the spot, Scott. It says, is there a list somewhere that covers the things only ArcGIS Pro can do? You got an answer for that one?
I do. So I did see a blog post that lists some of the special features in Pro, but it's not exhaustive by any means. Some of the functionality only available in Pro includes, like some of the things we showed today, the linked 2D and 3D views, the multiple layouts, the project-based file structure, the fact that there's no edit session, you can do contextual editing, new geoprocessing tools that you can't necessarily find in ArcMap, and new extensions as well, such as image analysis, or image analyst, and business analyst. And of course, most of the functionality in ArcMap has been migrated over to ArcGIS Pro. So in addition to all the traditional functionality you've enjoyed, you can take advantage of these newer things that I just mentioned as well.
All right, I got one more for you. There's one more here that I see that I hear a lot. It's about licensing for Pro. It says, what about licensing? Should we just use a portal or ArcGIS online user account? And then there's a second part to their question. It says, well, and if you do that, what happens if you don't have internet connectivity? Does that mean you can't use Pro?
Great questions. Licensing can be a tricky one. So by default, Pro is licensed using the name user license type. And with this license type, all Pro licenses are signed by an ArcGIS Online or Enterprise Portal administrator. The same credentials you use to log in to that portal or ArcGIS Online organization would be used to log into Pro. Alternatively, you can also license Pro as a single use or concurrent use option, which requires a conversion in my Esri. All 3 licensing types support the same 3 license levels that we've always had: basic, standard, and advanced. And of course, if you have any licensing questions, there's plenty of resources at Esri that you can reach out to. That would be happy to help you address those questions. And as far as the offline goes, yes, Pro can be used offline. If you have a named user or concurrent use license, you can select the offline option within Pro. Alternatively, a single use license are enabled for offline work by default. And so you can download stuff from your portal and ArcGIS Online organizations, those layers that you can work with disconnected as long as they're sync enabled. And once you regain that connectivity, all the changes that you made will be posted back to those layers.
All right, thanks. Well, Chris, maybe you can get queued up here. We've got a few questions for you that are actually going to test my pronunciation skills here.
You can do it.
This question comes in and says, what is a good source of paleogeographies for use in Exploration Analyst? You got that one, Chris?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a whole suite of data available out there. There's stuff on there's free stuff on the Esri platform, like the Living Atlas. And there are also a lot of data subscription products out there. For example, from GSEC, there's a great tool called Globe, which has paleogeographies for 57 or so formations throughout the geologic column. So yeah, there's plenty of data out there to use as the basis for these kind of risk segment maps.
All right, that's it. I've got a couple more for you, Chris.
Okay.
Let's say you showed some nice looking graphs in the extension. Are you able to export these to an image file or PowerPoint presentation?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do a lot of work and we focus on being inside the GIS environment, but very often this is passing our analysis to the next step of the process. So yeah, absolutely. Those graphs and those statistics, they can all be downloaded into image files and Excel spreadsheets and used in the next part of the process.
All right, I think we got time for two more, but here's two that one just popped in and then one that was in the queue. It says, can Exploration Analyst handle split risk scenarios, i.e. prospect and play risk?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's, it's very important when running these kind of workflows that you do handle the splitting out the prospect risk from the play risk, so you're not kind of double dipping and you're thinking about things in the right way. So the short answer to that question, without getting too technical, is yeah, absolutely. We can split those two risks up and we can handle them separately throughout the entire analysis workflow all the way through into estimating yet to find. So that's a yes.
All right, the last one comes in from a developer. It says, what are the main challenges in migrating the code base from ArcMap to ArcGIS Pro? So I'm assuming they're talking about migrating from the ArcGIS desktop extension to getting this thing, feature rich and functional in ArcGIS Pro. You got that one, Chris?
Yeah, I think it really depends what kind of developer you are. If you're a developer that's already familiar with MVVM and Windows WPF, then it's really just a case of picking up the new API and getting on with it, and that would be a very low barrier to building an extension. If there are things you have to learn, obviously that's probably going to be the main challenge for you. But there are other options for moving your functionality over into Pro. If you've got a lot of Python code, for example, as I mentioned, that can go over pretty quickly. So I would say probably for a lot of people in-house, they're not too worried about protecting their code. It's only going to stay within their organization. Then it should be very quick and easy to migrate things like models and Python over from ArcMap into Pro.
All right, thank you, Chris. Well, I think, I mentioned a moment ago, we have a lot of questions. So we're going to filter through all those questions, and our plan is, we mentioned this webinar is being recorded, and the link to this webinar will be posted in the next few days. So all registrants will receive an email with a link, and we're going to try to answer all the questions that we got in the questions dialogue in that email. But the one thing I would like to remind you before we conclude this presentation is that there will be a short survey that will pop up right after the webinar ends. And we would greatly appreciate your feedback. What do you think of these? Do you like them? We'll certainly take a look at your suggestions when designing future webinars. So with that, thank you very much. Thank you to our presenters. And we greatly appreciate you joining us in this Esri Petroleum webinar series. Thank you.